One of the questions that keeps coming up in discussing robotics and the coming age of humanoid robots is, what will we all do for work when all the jobs are taken? What is left for humanity? And the short answer is hobbies, I guess. But the longer question is, how will we pay for it? And is UBI the solution? I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. So what is universal basic income? UBI is the idea that everyone just gets a check, just because you're alive. And if you don't get a check, you might not be alive. If all the jobs are taken, and today they aren't, and tomorrow they aren't, but at some point they could be. The trick had become, if you look at all the old visions of the future, you saw that robots would come in like Rosie from the Jetsons to do all the menial work, all the things you don't want to do, the cooking, the cleaning, the vacuuming, leaving us free time to be creative. But the first bots we got were not mechanical, they're creative. So now we've got ChatGPT doing all our creative work, leaving us to do the dishes. Well, a humanoid robot could do the dishes, or the lawn, or the factory work, or the harder things. They could be plumbers in the future. They could be tradesmen in the future. They could make stained glass to your design in the future. Maybe the not too distant future, but it's certainly on the horizon now. So what will we all do for work, and why are so few talking about it? One answer is, of course, well, we've been told this before. When switchboards were operated by humans, they made a switch to it being electronic, and that put people out of work. Employment did not go up. There was new work to be done. And then when we've seen that with everything, there used to be secretarial pools who would do all the typing and all the clerical stuff. Well, now we've all got our own computers. We do it all ourselves. That's a good thing. Those are jobs that people didn't particularly love or feel fulfilled in, and getting rid of them did not cause an increase in unemployment. But this could be different. It could be a little bit scary even. Because right now, the biggest job in the U.S. is driving. That job could go away in the next 5 to 10 years. Well, we could all learn to fix the robots. We could all learn to be programmers. Programming is being done very capably by AI. At this point, you still need a human oversee it, to tinker with it, to make it actually work, but it does a really good job. Fixing the robots, that's something they will be able to do themselves before too long. What's left for us to do? So how would UBI work? How would universal basic income work? What would it look like? Imagine a country with infinite money or quasi-infinite money. Look at countries, oil-rich countries, where they have a whole bunch of natural resources and they're able to export it. Now, that's not a closed loop. That's relying on externalities. But what you end up with is money, extra money, lower taxes. You end up with countries like Kuwait, where the taxes are practically, if not literally non-existent. The gasoline costs are very, very low, practically zero. You could drive a monster truck there and the cost of fuel would not really bother you. You end up with countries where all your medical care is covered, where your tuition is covered with a stipend because they want you to go to college. Those are things that already exist. You can even look at a state like Alaska, where the royalties from oil extraction are sufficiently large that citizens get a check every year. It's very small, and it does not make up for the outrageously high cost of living in Alaska, but it's an example of everyone just getting a check. Why? What did they do for it? How lazy they must be to just get a check. No one calls them lazy. It's just how the system works. So if you're that government and you have that infinite money, what do you spend it on? Let's say you are that company. So if you are that country that has infinite money, what do you spend it on? Well, I would suggest you spend it on happiness. You spend it on the arts. You spend it on culture. That's a very easy way to do it. And the nice thing about universal basic income is it'd be cheap to keep track of. The overhead for administration would be quite low. Are you a person? Do you exist? If yes, then check. That's it. But it's not being talked about yet, and there are reasons why. So there have been experiments that have tried it, and they have succeeded in ways but failed in others. One problem is they're very expensive to fund, and they haven't been universal. There was a study I saw from last year where they took I don't remember the number, maybe 30 individuals, and said, guess what? We're going to give you a check for $1,000 a month, no strings attached. You don't have to tell us what you spend it on, and you don't have to do anything to qualify. It starts now. Here's your check. And what they found was after a year, all 30 of them were happier and more successful and more secure. Their lives had just gotten better. Well, that's great for those 30. It's not helpful for the remaining 300 million people who didn't get it, or 8 billion people who didn't get it. It wasn't universal. But the real question is, how do you take something that narrow and that expensive and make it very broad without being cripplingly expensive? Andrew Yang ran on the freedom dividend promise. Every American over the age of 18 gets $1,000 a month, no questions asked, no strings attached. What's missing from that is how to fund it. Well, he said, well, first we'd get rid of some of the other programs that do the same thing. We don't need redundant ones. You don't get Social Security and a freedom dividend. And I'm not sure what his latest proposal was. That's not the debate here. But if you have Social Security plus that dividend, it's too much. And there are people already getting well over $1,000 a month on Social Security. People who worked their whole lives, paid into the system forever in good faith, and now we're going to cut their pay. If you're living on a fixed income, that could be devastating. So what do? Have two systems? But the real problem is the $1,000 a month is a crippling amount of money, and it may be too soon to know what the correct amount of money is. So would you give it to everybody? Well, you'd have to if it's going to work. Would this just make landlords increase rents by $1,000 a month? Possible. Well, we'd need to step in and do something about that. Okay, well, now we're talking about a much bigger system. A much bigger system that's hesitant to make changes is one polite way to put it. So how are we going to pay for it? He said also we would put in a 20% value-added tax on goods sold. Other countries have VAT. The U.S. doesn't. That would solve it. 20% markup on everything? Everything? That's not a realistic solution. But it doesn't have to be, because there are better ways, because I think it could be done for less than $1,000 in ways that are meaningful and help. Now the question is, why has there been no legislation to address this yet? Why are there no serious discussions in governments anywhere in the world about the looming robot economic employment catastrophe that's certainly on the horizon? Well, one reason is it's still too soon. They can't see it yet. Also, legislators are typically quite a bit older. They didn't address the do not call list until they had to answer the phones themselves, and their secretaries weren't there to be bothered. They didn't address spam until they had to start using email. They still have jobs. They still have pensions. Until it hits them, we're unlikely to see it. Another reason is a big expense like this would be real hard to swallow for a lot of people. And if you think this is easy, look at how hard healthcare has been. Even getting things like caps on prescription drugs, which would lower the price of a prescription drug in the U.S. to just double what it is in another country, is unthinkable. If that's a non-starter, how are we ever going to get the government to understand that people will be out of work and will need some help? How long must the breadlines get? We may find out. So let's get back to my point that 1,000 may be too much. If we address it now and we say it's 1,000, we're kind of locked into it. When it may not need to be that much, well, how could someone survive for less than 1,000? Well, what is your cost of living? What is it made up of? If you don't have a job, you don't have to commute. So forget the commuting costs, the gas, the insurance, the whatever it may be. Forget that part. Now you've got rent, which could be free, and food, which could be free. What else is there? Power bill, that could be free. I shall tell you how that works. How would it work? I mean, you can't have a free home. Someone has to own the land. Well, the largest owner of land in the U.S. is the U.S. government. It's not even close. It is by far, in every state, I imagine, the biggest landholder. Take that piece of land, put up an apartment, a city, some homes, some nice homes, places people would want to live, places with services, places with theaters, places with stores to get what you need. Right, but you have to build the building. Who's going to build it? The robots can build it. Right, but you need to buy the materials, the wood, the steel, all the construction equipment, all the stuff. Yeah, bots could build that too. Why wouldn't the bots be able to operate a hammer or a nail gun or a screwdriver or a drill? Right, but you still have to pay for the wood. Okay, but have you seen how mechanized wood harvesting already is? The lumber business is already very mechanized. Getting those last few humans out of it, so it's just bots, would be possible in this scenario where all the jobs are gone. Well, yeah, but someone has to build the tractor. We're getting there. That could be bot built too. Yeah, but the iron to build it. Well, who's working the mines? The bots are working the mines. The house, the building, the apartment. Every part of that could be bot operated, could be bot constructed. Why not? All the minerals that went into it could be bot extracted. All the production and manufacturing that goes into that could be bot done. And if it can't be, then all the jobs are not yet gone. If the jobs are gone, great. Well, then who owns the robots? Who cares? As long as it's free, who cares? The government can buy a bunch of robots with the existing tax money that still remains and build them. Or they could build a factory and build their own. Bots will become a commodity. There will be early winners and losers, but over time, these are going to be as common as anything. Well, yeah, but you still need to pay for your food. Farms are already extremely automated. We only have a few parts left that need to be automated. The food production could be very cheap. There are tractors running with lasers that do all the weeding that use no pesticides, no herbicides, none of that. That can happen. Food could be, if not free, very close to free, especially if the farm equipment was free because bots built it and bots mined the materials to make it. Well, what about getting it there? You still have to pay for the fuel. What about my power bill? What about energy? We haven't factored that in. Well, solar panels are almost entirely made by machines. The parts that aren't could be made by robots. The minerals could be extracted by robots. All these parts could be done by robots. And if they're doing it, it's done. Now, who's going to actually want to pay a Tesla or Figure or any of these, or Boston Dynamics, who's going to want to actually pay them top dollar for bots if bots are a commodity? That's their problem. That's not my problem. So there is a world in which the only money you get from UBI is your playing around money. Your money for toys and stuff. Your money for your own clothes. You've got your food. You've got your shelter. You've got your energy. And you've got the place you live is not a scary, rundown slum. It's a reasonably new, reasonably nice center with arts. And if you want to go out and be that artist, you can. Well, I can't compete on art against AI. Okay, then don't. But you can. There are people who would appreciate your art. I appreciate little kids' art on the fridge. I have paid for little kid art to put on my fridge. I don't know. And it made the kid happy, and it made me happy. Because, I don't know, I guess I value humans. We have to have a serious conversation in the future about what work will be, about what UBI should be. And there's a lot to it. And I want to hear in the comments what you guys think. What is right about what I've said? What is wrong about it? Am I crazy? Or should we all just not get along? I don't know, man. You tell me. It's a mental exercise with a lot of work remaining to be done. Today is not the day for legislation to step in. It's too early. But the conversation needs to be started. So what did I miss? What did I misunderstand? Leave it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, do the usual. Thank you so much to my patrons on Patreon, my subscribers on YouTube, channel members on YouTube, and subscribers on X. You guys are the reason I'm able to go out and do these things, to travel as I do to these fine, fun cities. Don't forget, I do have a slightly belated birthday party coming up on July 3rd in Longview, Washington. You are all welcome to attend. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, guys, let me know. What are we doing? Stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots in a world where none of us have to work, but we get to do the things we love.